like it. Let's bring in Rick Caruso, founder and executive chairman who ran against Karen Bass for mayor of LA 2 years ago. Thank you, sir, for joining us. You caught our attention this morning with your analysis of the situation, saying this looks more like a third world country.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It does look like a third world country. The devastation up in the Palisades area is so widespread. Most of the downtown is completely gone. One of my developments up there was damaged. It's standing, which we're very grateful for, but obviously we're not sure what's going to happen because there's still fires around it. But most of the downtown is gone. Whole sections of neighborhoods are gone. As I heard on your report, schools, churches. What's amazing to me is how widespread this could have happened in a relatively short period of time. One of the things you reported was the lack of water and fire hydrants. I think there's a lot of tough questions that need to be asked on how it happened. Was the city adequately prepared? Knew the high winds were coming in? And to your point, I think John raised, the brush clearance in this area has not happened for decades. So although it started in a neighborhood, it quickly moved into the brush in the hills that are controlled by the city, the county, and the state. And it provided an enormous amount of fuel and just took off. And we really need to hold leadership responsible. Ask what they did and find out what they did wrong and hold people accountable.
In the meantime, this is survival mode, Rick.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, you're talking about $10 million homes and $30 million homes. Just to be clear, the majority of the businesses in the Palisades are independent small businesses. There is a far majority of homes in the Palisades that people have lived in for 30 or 40 years. Not all wealthy people. And these are people that are going to be wiped out. There's businesses that are going to be wiped out. And this is what really saddens and angers me and frustrates me, is that the city has a sacred duty and obligation to protect people's lives and livelihood. And when you don't have water and a fire hydrant, you've got to ask some real tough questions on how the hell this could happen in a major city, the second largest city in the country.
We know we're about to hear from President Biden. He is with the governor right now. He's on site about to deliver remarks. My team can alert me when he begins. Here we go. We've got the video up. Rick, if you could stand by with us. Obviously, this is the leadership in the form of the governor, I should say, that you're criticizing. We'll see what he's been discussing with the president, what resources they're going to be able to deploy. I know, to your point, you're saying there are firemen on site in some cases that can't do anything because they don't have resources. They don't have the ability to fight these fires.
Burning. Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home? Madam Mayor, let me ask you just again, have you anything to say to the citizens today as you return? Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Dave,
David, as you say, she wasn't very keen to answer any of your questions there. And fire chiefs are also admitting that they just don't have enough personnel to take out the fires.
Yeah, they're fighting all sorts of challenges. They're talking about a water shortage. There are reports of fire hydrant failures. They've been unable to use firefighting aircraft for much of the day due to the smoke that is billowing ominously from the hills where the wildfires are raging. And I suppose despite that political storm, this is, of course, at its heart, a human story, because we've now 80,000 people evacuated. Tens of thousands of others are on standby to be evacuated. 2 lives have been lost in the Eaton fire, which is what's causing the consequence behind us. The city's iconic landscape almost shrouded completely by the smoke. And they're really just taking it one step at a time, hoping at some stage the wind's going to change direction or to die down, and that they're going to be able to get this fire under control.
You just watched the most incompetent human being in political history. The mayor of LA, Democrat LA Mayor Bass, unable or unwilling to say anything to reporters as the fires rage and rage and rage in California. You had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Thank you for joining our live broadcast of the Douglas Ducote Show. Democrat LA Mayor Bass' leadership has been in the spotlight as many have blamed her for the disaster, pointing to the massive budget cuts that she made to critical firefighting forces that she poured into spending on the city's homeless population. Well, guess who's homeless now? For the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year, Los Angeles budgeted $837 million for the Los Angeles Fire Department, which was roughly 65% the size of the homeless budget of $1.3 billion. From 2023 to 2024 to the 2024-2025 budgets, the LA Fire Department's budget was reduced by $17+ million. Bass arrived back from her trip to Africa. Comes as wildfires continue to rage in Los Angeles County, leaving hundreds of thousands of residents under evacuation order, losing their homes, their pets, their animals, vehicles, everything gone. Sadly, Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said that at least 5 people have died or confirmed dead in the Eaton fire. And they know that many people throughout all of the fires that are burning right now in California are unaccounted for. So expect the death toll to sadly rise drastically when they're able to get back in there and go to the areas where the homes that people weren't able to get out and they burned to death. So the mayor is in Africa when all this was going down. And because of so many people screaming and hollering, what in the hell is she doing in Africa to start with? And now the surrounding area of LA is burning to the ground. She's over there on our dollar. And then more and more people start coming out in politics in California and members of the legislation, exposing the things that she has done that is part of the reason why this is such a disaster. So because of demand from the citizens, she flies from Africa back to LA, is confronted, as you just watched, by reporters, and says nothing. Doesn't utter a damn word. That is incompetence 101. and why in the hell she's not resigned yet is a billion-dollar question. The people of LA now need to demand that that bitch pack her bags and go someplace else besides there. She needs to be in no leadership position of any sort, anywhere, in any state. She's a sad excuse for a human being. As Los Angeles firefighters faced down the most destructive blaze in the city's history, they ran out of water. The hydrants are down, firefighters said over the radio, according to Los Angeles Times. Another chipped in, water supply just dropped. Fire crews were forced to watch as entire blocks, Pacific Palisades, one of the most scenic and celebrity-packed neighborhoods in LA, were incinerated in a matter of hours late Tuesday and early Wednesday. There's no water in the fire hydrants. Rick Corso, who owns the Palisades Village Mall in the heart of the devastated area, fumed on local media. The firefighters are there, and there's nothing they can do. We've got neighborhoods burning, homes burning, and business burning. It should never have happened. The water shortage was the result of years of mismanagement of the LA water system, including a federal indictment of a leader and high-profile resignations, as well as major operational problems that drained reservoirs too quickly. The Pacific Palisades fire, whipped up by hurricane-force Santa Ana winds, destroyed more than 1,000 homes and businesses by Wednesday night. It had spread to 16,000 acres, 25 square miles, bigger than the island of Manhattan, New York, and crews could not manage to contain any of it. LA residents voiced their concerns over the conditions that allowed the fire and the two other blazes in Los Angeles County to rage out of control. 5 people have died as of Wednesday night, last night. Several others were injured, and at least 70,000 were told to evacuate their homes across the LA area. Adding insult to injury, Democrat Mayor Karen Bass was 7,400 miles away, as I said, in Africa. And months earlier, she had approved an $18 million cut to the fire department. Resign. Why are you in Guyana? One person commented on X, a post by Bass' office giving an update on the wildfires. One angry person told Fox News, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I spent my life worrying about when the earthquakes are going to come, when the Santa Ana winds will come. I planned my trips around this. For someone to be in charge of my town, where are you? A legacy of terrible fire management by the state of California and Governor Gavin Newsom also hangs over the smoky skies of LA. LA's water system simply could not handle the demands of the multiple blazes, which was 4 times normal and lasted for 15 hours in just the first location. Jancy Quanas, head of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, told the LA Times, the city has 114 massive tanks that store water and help ensure consistent flow. All were full when the fire started on Tuesday. 3 1 million gallon tanks supplied the fire hydrants in that area. The first was empty by 5 p.m. The last was drained by 3 a.m., he said. Without the water tanks, the city system was simply not able to maintain pressure in the hydrants. The problem was not isolated to the city of LA. Malcolm Stewart, who lives near Palestine, had not a single fire truck on his street as he watched the Eaton fire, a huge blaze east of Los Angeles, swallow his neighborhoods, houses one by one, creeping closer to his childhood home. the water supply to his house had been cut, leaving him and his brother without so much as a garden hose to douse spots of fire as it kept the flames from spreading to their property. There's nothing they could do. He's literally out there with dirt and a shovel and hope, his wife, Charlene Stewart, said hours after she had lost contact with him. When the same thing happened in neighboring Ventura County, humiliated officers blamed damaged pumps and overall lack of water, despite backup systems and protocols that allow firefighters to draw water from other sources. In LA, those failed safes should have been working. The hydrants should have stayed full, and a water shortage on this scale should never have happened. Crusoe, a former Utilities Commission head of the candidate for LA mayor, told the newspaper, the failure of LA's water system comes after years of criticism from President-elect Donald Trump and others that California leaders are not managing their water or their risk of the property. Trump pinned the blame for the water shortage on Democrat Governor Newsom, who derailed a 2020 Trump admin order redirecting water from the Verdant north of the state to parts South California. Newsom's excuse, a tiny endangered fish that has already been declared extinct. He wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt, but didn't care about the people of California. The incoming president ran it on his Truth Social platform. Trump has also slammed Newsom for failure to clean up the underbrush and dead trees that can fuel forest fires, though it's not yet clear whether that is a factor in these latest blazes. I told him from the first day we met that he must clean his forest floors regardless of what his bosses, the environmentalists, demand of him. Must also do burns and cut fire stoppers, Trump posted to X back in 2019. Trump was referring to measures such as prescribed burns and fuel breaks or fire breaks, which help keep wildfires from spreading. Newsom has bragged about his forestry accomplishments, but a 2021 investigation by Cat Radio and NPR's California newsroom found that they overstated the numbers of access treated with fuel breaks and prescribed burns by a whopping 690%. But LA's utility system has its own massive institutional problems. Bass was touted as the first DEI appointments. She ousted Cynthia Ruiz, the department's first ever Native American commissioner, after less than a year in service. 2 out of the latest 3 general managers of the utilities have resigned in disgrace, but not the mayor, not the governor. One alleged mismanagement, $40 million in funds. Another, David Wright, was sentenced to 6 years in prison for taking bribes. Most of the public backlash, however, is centered on Mayor Bass, who rushed home to attend the inauguration of Guyana's new president in Africa when the blaze broke out Tuesday night. She was overseas despite warnings of what was to come with the Santa Ana winds days earlier. And this is nothing new. This is something that's been going on down there for years. As I shared with you last night when we did our Wednesday night program with me and my wife, in the beginning of the program, I talked about the firefighting efforts and what I've done in the past when I was in the National Guard down there, and how we used our Chinook helicopters with Bambi buckets to help put out fires. I shared some video with you of my actual unit that I served with fighting the fires. So when Trump was in office the first time and these massive fires were happening, Trump went out there as president and met with the local firefighters, the California Forestry Department, the governor, mayors, and he got an earful from everybody about how dangerous the situation was and all the things that needed to be accomplished to stop something like this from happening, starting with the fish up in the northern part of the state where they're diverting water away from going south to protect a fish that's extinct. Trump called out Newsom at the time, explained how horrible this was, explained all the things that the firefighters shared with him. And Gavin Newsom was asleep at the wheel and has still been, because nothing's been done to change it. If you're still with me, I'm very sorry we lost power here in my area of the state. We have massive storms moving into South Louisiana right now, and the internet keeps going in and out along with our power. We do have a backup generator for the house, but my computer's backup battery system did not kick on when it should have. So nothing I can do about it. Hopefully that will not continue. Anyhow, let's get to some other news and some things that are happening that are utterly ridiculous. Health and Human Service Secretary Xavier Becerril warned against the impact of preempted presidential pardons for people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, Liz Cheney, and the January 6th committee. Hours after President Biden said in an interview that he was still considering it. It sinks my heart to think that we're going to use the pardon process in a way that will follow the whims of whoever's in the White House. He previously served as California's Attorney General before taking his post in Homeland Security, said in an interview with the New York Times on Wednesday. He noted that he was speaking from his legal background as opposed to his position in Biden's cabinet. I think we should hold that power that not only a president has a very high regard, he continues, because otherwise it becomes pedestrian-like and it's used anywhere. And I don't think that should be the case. And let's just look at the facts. Why would you need a pardon if you're not guilty? No different than when you pardoned Hunter Biden. Why would you need to pardon Hunter Biden? No different than the J6 committee members or Dr. Anthony Fauci. Why do you need a pardon unless they know you're guilty? And Trump has said he will come after them. His Department of Justice and his FBI will take action. And look, if there's no crime there, nothing will be done, right? If there is, somebody will be held accountable. That's how the system is supposed to work. But we all know how the system works. And Joe Biden is going to make damn sure, I'm pretty sure, that these criminals never see a day in court. President Donald Trump said he respects the Supreme Court's decision that came out just a few hours ago to deny his request to stop his sentencing in New York versus Trump from moving forward, but said tonight that he will appeal, while stressing that lawfare has been an attack on the Republican Party. Trump's comments came just moments after the Supreme Court tonight denied Trump's emergency petition to block his sentencing from taking place tomorrow morning. The sentencing was scheduled by New York Judge Juan Merchant. Merchant last week said he would not sentence the president-elect to prison, but rather issue a sentence of an unconstitutional discharge, which means there will be no punishment imposed. Now, that's all fine and dandy, and it's great, but why is he doing this? Well, it's pretty simple. Without him doing it, Trump's not a felon. And he goes in the White House, is not a felon, as the news media likes to claim he is. But if he sentences him, even if he doesn't sentence him to any time or any prison or any punishment, it makes him a felon. And that's all this is about. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in a history that's under attack of a gag order where I'm not allowed to speak about something, Trump said during a meeting in Mar-a-Lago Thursday night with Republican governors. This is a long way from finished, and I respect the court's opinion. Trump said he thought the court's ruling was a very good opinion for us, noting that the justices invited the appeal. Well, we'll see how all of it works out. I think it's going to work out well. But Trump reflected on the lawfare that has been a victim, saying that it was an attack on the Republican Party and those that voted for him. This was an attack on the Republican candidate who has just won an election by records numbers, the highest number of Republican voters by far ever gotten. And we won all the swing states. We won the popular vote by millions of people, he said. They tried to stop this from happening. They tried to stop this election from happening or to bloody somebody up so badly they couldn't win. Trump said that the people got it and we won by the largest number. Trump filed an emergency petition to the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday in an effort to prevent tomorrow's sentencing. The application for stay presented to Justice Sotomayor and by her referred to the court is denied inter alia the following reason. First, the alleged involuntary violations at President-elect Trump's state court trial can be addressed in ordinary course on appeal. Second, the burden that sentencing will impose on the president-elect's responsibilities is relatively insubstantial in light of the trial court state's intent to impose the sentencing of unconstitutional discharge after a brief virtual hearing, the court ruled. The order also noted that Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh would grant the application. Trump needed 5 votes in order to have the request granted. The note on the order suggests that Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Barrett voted with Justices Stolimar, Kagan, and Brown Jackson, the liberal judges. Trump's sentencing is now expected to move forward, with President-elect expecting to appear virtually in the proceedings, which is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. Merchants set Trump's sentencing in New York versus Trump for January 10th, after a jury found the now president-elect guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree, stemming from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges and has appealed the ruling that's been rejected from going forward. I followed this case. I reported on this case. I pointed out, as did many others, of all the bias that was taking place in all of these court hearings. And all the illegal things that were done by these judges and these DAs just to get the man any way they possibly could. And so he's going to be elected on the 20th with a felony counts. And then I will predict now that in the appeal process, after the sentencing process, he will be acquitted of all charges, as I predict with all of the cases that have happened, that have been thrown out so far, except for the woman who had no evidence whatsoever, no witnesses, that she was violently sexually assaulted in a department store dressing room. One of the most outrageous, made-up bullshit stories that anybody's ever heard. And the fact that a judge allowed that case to go forward, which, by the way, is a civil case, because the actual case, criminal case, was tossed out. Why? Because there was no evidence that he'd ever met this woman, much less all the shit that she claimed took place. She couldn't remember the time. She couldn't remember the date. Couldn't remember anything. And there was no video evidence whatsoever of her or Trump ever entering that store. But that doesn't matter to the liberals and Democrats, does it? Nope. Whatever it takes to get the man, get him and take him down. That's all this is about. So tomorrow, he will be sentenced. Good job, liberals and Democrats. That will backfire. But regardless, guess what? We don't care. We, the people, voted for him knowing that he could be a convicted felon. Now, think about this for a moment, especially if you're tuning in from another country or Canada, for instance. Think about this. The alternative was so damn bad that the overmajority of the American public voted for a man who has been drugged through the court system and charged as being a felon. How bad must one be for we the people to say, we don't care? We know what he did the last time he was president. We know what this guy, the current guy, has done as president, and we've watched the babbling idiot Kamala Harris make a fool out of the entire system. It's pretty sad. How many of you realize that we are actively engaged, our military, fighting in Iraq? Remember the Iraq War, Operation Desert Storm and Operation Just Cause, and Operation Iraqi Freedom? Yeah, we're back at it again, folks. U.S. Central Command has confirmed that a non-U.S. soldier, but a member of the coalition, was killed and 2 others were injured recently in a coalition operation against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Press release shared on X, formerly Twitter. Central Command wrote, U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, and partner forces conducted operations in Iraq and Syria, December 30th, 2024 to January 6, 2025. In support of the ongoing Defeat ISIS campaign, according to U.S. officials, Central Command and Iraq forces executed multiple strikes on December 30th to January 6th against known ISIS locations throughout the mountains of Iraq. Central Command explained that the strikes were conducted to disrupt and degrade ISIS' ability to plan, organize, and conduct attacks against civilians in the region, as well as U.S. citizens, allies, and partners throughout the region and beyond. U.S.-led coalition used A-10s, F-16s, and F-15s to conduct airstrikes against ISIS fighters who engaged coalition forces on several occasions. According to Central Command, A-10s also successfully eliminated ISIS fighters located in a cave while supporting the coalition ground forces in the region. 1 coalition member was killed and 2 others wounded from 2 different nations. Central Command said there were no injuries to U.S. personnel or damage to U.S. equipment. It's being reported. According to a press release, Central Command enabled Syrian Democratic Forces to conduct a de-ISIS operation from January 2nd to January 3rd in Syria, which led to the capture of a leader of an ISIS attack cell. In the press release, Central Command emphasized that the United States and its partners in combined joint force operations Inherent Resolve remain committed to the ongoing fight against ISIS in the Middle East. Addressing the recent U.S.-led coalition strikes against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, General Michael Kurley, the commander of U.S. Central Command, said, partnered operations like these are critical to maintaining pressure on ISIS and preventing the terrorist group from taking advantage of the rapidly changing security environment in the region. The enduring defeat of ISIS is a global effort that relies on coalition allies and partners. U.S. Central Command remains committed to aggressively pursuing these terrorists that threaten the region, our allies, and our citizens. And where have you heard reporting of the buildup in the Middle East of U.S. forces? Right here. When the other news agencies were not covering it. Even Fox News not telling you the truth about the Biden administration's buildup of U.S. forces in the Middle East. I did. I let you know from my contacts up in the Pentagon and in the military what was going on behind the scenes that nobody knew about because they weren't telling us. They wanted to keep it hush-hush. How dare the American people find out under Joe Biden's leadership and Kamala Harris that we're back in Iraq again on the ground fighting terrorists. And there were so many on the left and Democrats that came out and criticized me and called me a conspiracy theorist and all types of names, and that I made it all up. Well, guess what? I didn't make up shit. I do my homework. I talk to people. I vet what I'm going to talk about before I come on and do this show. And from time to time, yes, I get it wrong. And the difference between me and many is that when I get it wrong, I step forward and take responsibility for it and correct my wrong. I wasn't wrong on this. I told you, and I've been telling you for the last year, that the Biden-Harris administration has been building up U.S. forces in the Middle East, not just with our naval forces that I've reported on, our Air Force that I've reported on, but ground forces. And they're actively involved in combat operations in Syria and Iraq. So the next time Kamala Harris says to anyone, like she said in the debate, that the first time in history this administration has no combat troops deployed, and she was lying through her teeth, well, now you know the facts. And sadly, we will have more U.S. deaths in the Middle East. I don't have the answers to this quagmire that we're in, other than nuke the whole damn place and turn it into a glass parking lot, because I'm so sick of the Middle East. And anyone that's ever been there knows exactly why. I've been over there too many damn times. And each time I went, it amazed me that they never called 911 or 1-800 U-Haul and moved the fuck out of this camel-infested sand pit from hell, where all they're doing is killing each other and wishing they could kill Americans. CNN senior political data reporter Harry Eaton is trashing Biden for claiming that he could have won re-election if he stayed in the 2024 race. After President-elect Trump's resounding victory in November, many Democrats have been offering theories about what could have been done differently, and Biden is no exception. When asked in a USA Today interview this week if he would have won had he not dropped out of on July 21st, Biden replied, "It's presumptuous to say that, but I think yes." USA Today summarized that he continued by adding he based that view on polling he had reviewed. Eaton, however, said Biden's claims were nonsense based on the polling data and criticized Biden's statement that he could have beaten Trump as flat out bonkers. Biden was well behind Trump when he dropped out. Biden never led at all in 2024. And no incumbent president who was anywhere near as unpopular as Biden has ever won. In a video he posted along with a tweet, Eaton elaborated, "Why do I say that this statement is flat out bonkers, that he could have won in 2024 election had he stayed in the race? Just take a look here." He then showed a polling numbers from around the time Biden dropped out of the race, particularly in Great Lake battleground states, where it was Donald Trump ahead in all three. After showing similar advantages in other major regions, he elaborated, but it's not just that Trump was ahead. He was ahead by a lot in these key battleground states. "My goodness gracious," he said as he marveled at Trump's leads at the time, then widened the scope of the analytics. So let's look at the entire 2024 campaign. Days Biden led Trump in 2024. When Biden was still in the race, he said as he pointed to a giant zero on the screen. Zero, nada, no days. No days was Biden ahead of Donald Trump. After showing there is no record of incumbents winning with a negative approval rating, Eaton summarized his findings. The bottom line is this: Joe Biden was behind. He had always been behind. He most likely would have stayed behind, the data expert said. So maybe Joe Biden was given some polling data that said that he was ahead. We don't know. Either he was or he lied about it. Doesn't matter. We all know the truth. Biden has been saying for quite some time in 2024 that the poll numbers had him up ahead of Trump. Even though we're looking at the poll numbers and seeing just the opposite. So it comes back down to this. Who's running this country for the last 4 years? Who's been pulling the strings and making all the decisions that have broken this country? Have caused all the DEI hires? Think about this for a moment. The Biden-Harris administration put people in cabinet positions and government leadership positions based on DEI. Not because of their experience and education, but because of their sexual orientation. They definitely love transsexuals, men that like to pretend they're women. They love the shit out of that. They appointed many of them in positions of power. And then we've watched for 4 years as this country becomes a laughingstock of the world. And that's pretty sad and pathetic. But it's all going to change in just a few more days. Today's January 9th and January 20th. An official convicted felon that we voted for will become president of the United States. Again, I have no doubt it will be overturned on appeal when finally it's looked at on the merits, on the basis of what it was, a sham trial to try and destroy this man, Donald J. Trump. We're at a part in American history. Some of it is going to go down as positive and greatness. A bunch of it will go down as disgraceful and shameful. What we witnessed for not just the past 4 years, but 4 years prior to that when Donald Trump was president. So for 8 years now, we watched the DOJ and the FBI and Democrat and liberal DAs and judges and Democrat members of the House and Senate do everything in their power, throw everything they can at the wall in hopes that something sticks to stop the man, to include the Secret Service basically standing down and allowing at least two that we know, assassination attempts against Donald Trump. And one where by the grace of God, the bullet only grazed his ear. A fraction of an inch would have made the difference in where we're at today and who would be taken over on the 20th. When the American people in the future look back on this time that we're experiencing and have been experiencing for the past 8 years, they will look at this just like we look at the past. For instance, Jimmy Carter, the worst president in the history of America, who, by the way, is dead now. To his family, I'm sorry, but he was the worst president America ever had until Joe Biden came along and made Jimmy Carter look like Ronald Reagan. It is absolutely dumbfounding, pathetic what we've watched unfold in this country. Weaponization of the Justice Department and the FBI by the current administration against their political opponent. We've sent U.S. combat troops into other countries to stop this kind of shit from happening. I know I was part of some of those operations. And it happened right here in America, and we all witnessed it. I can only hope and pray that there will be people held accountable. And I hope that you do too. If you had many places to be tonight, you chose to be here with me, and for that I'm forever grateful. I'm sorry that we lost power there for a little bit. We're going to lose some more here before the night's over with. There's a massive, so if you look at the radar of what's coming across right now, and north of us, it's lots of ice and snow, and many snowstorms and ice storms that people have been experiencing, and thousands of people out of power. With us right now, it's just heavy rain, lightning, thunder, storms of that nature moving through. There'll be tornadoes, as there always are. But we will get through it. I'm sorry that it interrupted part of this show tonight. I hope, and I won't know until I go back and rewatch the show, if the time frame that I was actually not on the screen, if you could actually hear what was coming out of my mouth. I hope that that wasn't captured. I hope that just all went black, because I was a little upset. We'll leave it at that. Whatever you're going to be doing this weekend, I hope that you're safe. I hope that you continue to watch your six, protect your family. Remember that we still have people in this country that want to do us harm, thanks to this current administration. I'll be back next Tuesday. If anything breaks between now and then, I will put out a video about it, or I'll do a live program about it. But until then, as always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America, and especially those that are deployed, actively fighting these fires. National Guard, active duty military, Cal Fire, Nevada Fire, Oregon Fire, Washington State Fire, they're all coming down to help. I believe there's even assets coming from Texas. I know that my unit that I serve with in the National Guard are bringing down Chinook helicopters to do Bambi bucket operations down there. It is a very, very dangerous situation that they're in. If you have Flight Radar, the app on your phone, zoom in to that area and look at the massive amounts of helicopters and firefighting aircraft that are in this one congested area trying to put out those fires. I've been there. I've done that. And it's very, very scary, especially knowing that if you have a problem and you have to go down, if you survive it, you're going to burn up and die in the fire. That was something that always went through my head as we were conducting these firefighting operations on state active duty. So please keep those that are deployed down there in your thoughts and prayers as well. And let's hope that they can get this under control and put an end to it. And also put an end to the corrupt leadership. Just like we want to see the corrupt leadership in America go away, we want to see the same thing happen in every state, every county, every city. Get rid of these politicians that are only there for their own personal benefit and to screw the people. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Good night.